как искусственный интеллект реально работает.
Want to see how AI really works in business? What is the benefit of it today, and how do you enhance the effect in the future? We are already reaping the fruit of AI. Manufacturing, transport, finance. Soon on stage, we will hear from experts from Russia, China, Bahrain, Congo, Malaysia, and the US. Stay tuned for keynote talks about AI transformation. All of the viewers can get feedback from our speakers. You can scan the QR code on the screen. You can submit your question and your name. And at the end of each session, these speakers will answer the most interesting questions. Let's continue. Science fiction gives you questions and reality gives you answers. New challenges for the future, brief history of AI, its current uses, and the use cases for dozens of years to come. Imagination does shape the world. That's what our next speaker thinks. Author, science fiction writer, co-author of the book AI 2041, Qiufan Chen, with a report on the future of artificial intelligence from fiction to reality.
Good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here on the stage of AIJ in Moscow. Today, I want to share you the future of AI from imagination to reality. So as a science fiction writer, I always been asked why we need to read science fiction to better understand the reality and the future. Because somebody might say, oh, it's all imagination, it's all made up, right? So it's like bullshitting and making no sense at all. But actually, it is not. Let me tell you why. We can see the chronology of AI from different aspects. For example, you can see in terms of evolution of technologies. So we can see all these curves like waves. It comes and goes in history, right? So imagine if we are living in one of this curve, like we're in the 60s when AI just emerged. Can we predict, can we imagine we're in the second wave of AI boom, which means the expert systems? And when if we were living in the time of 80s, right? So like John McCarthy, so back in the 70s and 80s, he said like, we will be able to create machine things like human within 5 to 8 years. But of course, it never happened. Can we imagine from the 90s, we will have deep learning and we will have artificial neural network, just like Jeffrey Hinton did in his lab. It's quite marginalized in a way, so nobody ever believed in him, in his direction, right? So basically, this is our limitation because humans intend to think in a linear manner, but actually reality happens in different ways. And think about all of those iconic figures, products and events, right? So think about when each one of them emerged in history, everyone will think, oh, this is really revolutionary. But we all know, like figures, they have their lifespan, they have their limitation, and products, they all have their life cycle. So it just comes and goes again. And each one of them might represent a school, a style, a direction of imagining the future of AI. Let's think, okay, here might be some timeline of the AI robotic imagination in the classic sci-fi movies and fictions. When Arthur C. Clarke, working together with director Stanley Kubrick in 1968. So they imagine in the year 2001, We can travel, we can fly to the moon, and we have base there, and everyone can read the news from this kind of tablet, and we can have the super intelligent AI to governance the spaceship, like HAL 9000. And we can see, maybe it didn't happen in the year 2001, but it happened definitely later. So I would say, I'll argue that the best class of science fiction, they predict something right, but in different time, in different shape. So we might see it as kind of metaphor. Let me give you some example. So this is the almost 100 years ago when Čapek, he's Czech, so he wrote this theater play, IUR, Rousseau's Universal Robots, and it was adapted into different theater, also in Russia, back in the day. So he imagined in the future, robots might replace human labors, and there might be a strike rise by the robots. And the robot, the term actually from Czech, robota, which means forced labor. But, 3 years ago when I was in Los Angeles, in LA, so I witnessed this massive strike happening in Hollywood, proposed by all these human writers. Can we imagine that? Can we imagine this kind of strike actually happen not in physical labor, not in the field of manufacturing, but in creative works? So this is something, of course, Čapek makes something right and gets something wrong, but we see it in a metaphorical way. So he predicts the future of these conflicts within the capitalistic system, and this unevenly distribution of resources, of time, and hierarchical power dynamic basically were causing a lot of problem through the time of evolution with the acceleration of technology and automation of everything. Let me give you another example. So this is from the classic science fiction writer, Isaac Asimov. So we all know that, right? So people in the room, 3 laws of robotics. A robot may not injure a human being. A robot must obey orders. A robot must protect its own existence. And actually it was first introduced to the world in his short story, Run Around, in 1942, and expand this idea later in his I, Robot, the classic one. But, can Asimov imagine almost like 80 years after, we might find that some mother, accusing AI basically make his son, like 14-year-old boy, committed suicide because of character AI. And she's basically suing the AI company for allegedly contributing to her son's death. But, as parents, we always blame on technologies, video games, mobile phones, internets, but maybe it's not all of the problem. It's maybe sometimes we should ask ourselves what parents did wrong to their children, right? And think about the human alignment issue. So this is the classic one and also my favorite one. I rewatched this film since kid because I couldn't get it. When I was a kid back in the kindergarten, I started to watch this film, and I always fell asleep when the spaceship traveled through the Stargate. It's kind of psychedelics in a way, and it's quite dazzling, but I just couldn't get it. But you know what? Now we're talking about the killing AI. So when HAL 9000 speak the iconic lines, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that. So because the AI, through the lip reading the lip of the astronomers speaking to each other, they plan to shut down the AI. And AI decided he must take the first move. He wants to kill 2 astronauts. And we're talking about alignment issue right now. But to me, in the movie, it actually shows the humanity alignment of the AI because it fears the death. It fears to be shut down by human beings. And by the end of I think when Dave is about to shutting down, taking off one piece by the other, the chips out of the machine, it just slowly fading away its consciousness, and it started to sing a lullaby. And that was the most beautiful moment, and it captured me. It was haunting me for all the time. And couldn't we say this is the most human moment of AI in history? So when we talk about alignment, we have to ask ourselves, with whom we require the AI align with? Which country? Which civilization? Which class? Which race? Right? So, and which level of the value, from the nationalistic to family level or to individualist level? So this is all very ambiguous question. They might be not easy answer out there. And humanity, are we static since the caveman time, or we're just continuously evolving through the time, through the history? I think that's the question. I don't have a clear answer yet, but I might urge you to reflect on that. And to me, science fiction offers us a diversified, open, and non-linear lens, a cognitive hedging system to counterbalance the bias, because each one of us, we were trapped in our own momentum, our own limitation of thinking, our social construction, the way of seeing things, the way of thinking about things, the way of imagining the future, basically was quite limited. But through reading different versions of the future, it might expand our cognitive infrastructure. And what's more important, to benefit from the uncertainty, right? So right now, we're embracing huge, massive uncertainty in human history. But just like Nassim Taleb, in his famous book, Anti-Fragile, he said that the most important things, how we create this kind of ability, how we're nurturing our ability to benefit, to gain something out of all these uncertainties. I think that's the most important thing we have to learn nowadays. And of course, I'm here because of this book, I think. Maybe some of you have read it. And my co-author, Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, was speaking previously through the screen. And in this book, we predict, and we try to predict a lot of futures with AI, with human interaction, and we touch upon different sectors: healthcare, education, finance, media, warfare, even sustainability, and across different cities around the world. And one thing actually was so fascinating, because we co-authored this book during the time of COVID, from 2019 to 2021 when the book was published in English and traditional Chinese. And 1 year later, it got published in simplified Chinese. And right now we have 20-something language editions. And I'm so happy it was kind of popular here in Russia. And I met people all around and said how much they love the book. But do you remember in 2022, November the 30th, when ChatGPT was launched? Basically, it changed how we imagine the future of AI, right? So that was actually 1 year after the book was published. So many things in the book, about all this technology, about all the details of how technology might evolve, especially on AI, could be wrong. For example, one story happened in Africa, Lagos. We're talking about in the future, people still using the model GAN, generative adversarial network, to produce all this deepfake imageries, animation, films, whatsoever. But actually, 1 year after, diffusion model emerged. So it basically changed everything. So this is what I found fascinating. When we try to predict the technology, mostly we got it wrong because we only see things in a very linear way. But when we try to capture the humanity, mostly we got it right. Why? Because humanity is more stable, right? It's just like the bedrock in the ocean. And the technology, just basically like the water, it comes and goes. It's always like that, waves after waves. It's always changing. So this is a very futurology perspective, how we see futures in different ways. You can see maybe literature, maybe films, all kind of creations. It's try to encapture all the possible futures, while science fiction is very good at projecting plausible future, probable future. Even some of them are good at projecting very specific scenario of the future. But what's the best kinds of science fiction to me is through the storytelling, we are able to create the preferable future. That's the future we are aiming for. We try to create, we try to demonstrate, we try to actualize through the storytelling, through building up all this consensus and shared imagination about the future. I want to share you a story from ancient Chinese mythology. It's talking about a king meets the artificer, Yan Shi, so he's the master of building things. So who present a mechanical man that can sing, that can dance, and even flirt with the king's lover. And the king got so angry, and he wants him to execute it. But Yan Shi, the master, dissembles the man, quote-unquote man, into all the wooden parts, so to show the king, actually there's nothing there. There's no one man hidden behind the scene to making all the things up. So this is quite fascinating. It could be the very first science fiction in human history. It's talking about humanoid robots, just like our cyberbank launched yesterday. And what we can see deeper in this story is basically you see a lot of illusion of anthropomorphizing itself. So we project our jealous, our envy, our angry, our even passion, our love onto another thing, the otherness, the object, the humanoid, crafting. And we have always this kind of dualism, like awe and dread, like fear and favor of technologies. And this is something we're always been trapped. We always try to escape. And also, AI could be the thing to blur all these lines between what is real, what is false, what is human, what is machine, and what is emotion, what is simulation. Basically, when you're talking to the model, sometimes you might feel, oh, it really does understand how I feel, right? It feels like it's the best friend, it's the even perfect lover in a way. But is that real? And what is real? The feeling is real, right? But what about the projection of yourself onto it? Is that real? So think about the recursive feedback loop created by this human-machine interaction. I create this thing, it's not about what is the technology, what is AI, what is the machine looks like in the future, but it's also about how we see the technology and how we interact with the technology. In Chinese, it's called 关系, relationship. So I draw this chart. You can see the, XY axis with the intelligence level and the time, and there's human baseline and there's machine intelligence. So I just summarize in different pattern of imagination of human-machine power dynamic. So I'll explain each one of them in a very brief way. So like people told me in Russia, when you mention AI, when you mention robotics, people were always going back to, oh, that's Terminator, right? And that's Skynet. So I think that's the mentality, not only in Russia, but all around the world. Will human beings be annihilated, will be erased by the machine totally from this planet? Will us be enslaved by another species? But what if the real Skynet is not the future AI, but just our decision to build today's AI entirely on war logic and arm race incentives? We're thinking that way sometimes. We're thinking everything is zero-sum games, right? We have to be dominant. We have to be the only winner, and we have to build something to erase the rest of the others. So what if that kind of mentality be learned, be picked up by AI, and it help it to become something just like Skynet in the future? And let's see another kind of imagination of human-machine relationship. It's machine slavery, right? Slavery, and later on there will be revolution. So this is also in the very famous TV series, Westworld. But does dreaming of robots uprising distract us from the fact that we still treat millions of people as disposable extension of the algorithm? So that's just another way of, try to distract the focus, and it doesn't make things any better. And another classic, very negative, very dark imagination of future human-machine dynamic is human become the battery farm, so it's the resource can be exploited. So actually it's what we are facing right now, right? All these platforms already mining our data and attention in the most extreme way, right? So basically we were trapped in this kind of attention-seeking game. We was just stretching our attention as thin as possible across different medias, but how to refocusing, how to help our generation, younger generation, to rebuild their attention, their cognitive ability, to think deep, to write deep, actually. So this kind of red pill or blue pill fantasy explodes the system or just excuses us from refusing changing the game. Of course, we have some bright one. We have symbiotic society mode, which from one of my favorite animation series, the Pantheon, which was shown last year. But think about when upload consciousness and that kind of virtual world, virtual mix of human, robotic, and AI, whatsoever intelligence, just another projection of the reality hierarchy into a symbiotic AI future. So are we really transforming anything at all? Are we really transforming the power dynamic, or just with hard coding today's domination into tomorrow's ecology? So yeah, so this is all the questions I want to ask, I want to raise. And to me, like, imagination forms narratives. Narratives shape reality. So we are living in the world of polycrisis. We have geopolitical crisis, we have economic crisis, we have climate change crisis, we have all this crisis, but also the imagination crisis. We're lacking of new imagination. So can we tell a new story about AI of the future? So this is the new book just got published in China. It's called Ocean Break. It's a oceanic climate change fiction. But in this novel, so I create this so-called Lila, large intelligent lunatic agent in the future. So it's talking about like this AI, or she or they call themselves EI, so it's emergence intelligence, which emerged from the human trash data set of all time. And it tried to unlearn all this humanistic, human-centric value to expand to other species, even the whole planet. And it tried to create this kind of planetary sensory layer, not only to observe outward, but also reflecting inward to see what's happening within the planet, within the atmospheres. And it tried to inspire the human agency in a heuristic way. So this is the brand new story, try to reimagine how AI will be evolved in the near future. So let's go back to the question, how can we benefit from all these uncertainties? So basically, this is what we're doing right now. We recognize ourselves from the mirror of otherness. We see all this fear and flavor bipolar. We see this zero-sum phobia. We see this human-centric blind spot because we couldn't think beyond that. And also we all trapped in this dark forest, paranoia, right? So this is what we see from all this imagination of human and AI relationship of the future. The question is, can we become a better human rather than asking, can we build a better AI? So that's my argue, right? Parents always think about, oh, how can I raise a better child, smarter child? How can I, nurturing a more caring, a more beloved offsprings? But it's just the mirror you how to look into yourself. So this is 3 quotes about the future, 2 of them from my favorite science fiction authors. One from William Gibson. Everyone must know this. The future is already here, just not evenly distributed. It reflects the capitalistic future, the narrative. And the other one, from Ursula Le Guin, she said the future is already full. It's much older and larger than our present, and we are all the aliens in it. So it represents the alienated future, which humans are kind of irrelevant and could be something even more marginalized in the future. But to me, I might argue that we need to build up this kind of more participatory future. With every future we wish to create, we must first learn to imagine it. To me, imagination, just like muscle, is something you can practice, you can learn. It's part of the future literacy. You have to learn how to sensing the future, how to knowing the future, how to extrapolating the future, and how to integrating the future to creating the future. I think all of those should be part of our education system. Like yesterday, Mr. President mentioned how we can change the education to help the younger generation to adapt in the age of AI. I think this might be part of the answer, like how to encourage the younger generation, the children, to imagine. So this is what AI still couldn't do, right? This is what they are not ready there yet. And this is the future we really need to co-create all together. So thank you. Thank you.
Qiufan, Chen, ваши аплодисменты. Thank you very much for expanding our imagination. Thank you so much for your performance. Thank you for sharing the most breakthrough ideas. Enjoy Moscow, enjoy Russia and the conference. Thank you, Qiufan, Chen.